All right, so we're diving deep into some seriously interesting stuff you've given us. We're looking at Antifragile by Nassim Taleb, The Art of Learning by Josh Waitzkin, and Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Sounds like a potent combo.
It is, and they all touch on this really cool idea, not just surviving change, but actually getting stronger because of it.
Yeah, that's a pretty big shift, right? I mean, most of us are kind of wired to avoid risk, to look for that comfort and stability.
Totally. But what if, and this is what Taleb argues, what if that's making us more vulnerable in the long run?
Okay, I'm listening. So where does this idea of anti-fragile come in?
So Taleb says it's not just being tough or resilient, it's about actually gaining from disorder. Like right at the beginning of the book, he makes this stark contrast. Fragile things break under stress, right? Robust things can withstand it, but anti-fragile things actually get better because of it.
I like that. It's like almost counterintuitive. Reminds me of like working out a muscle. If you never lift weights, it stays weak, right? You lift a little, it kind of stays the same. But if you really challenge it, heavier and heavier weights, that's how it gets stronger.
Perfect analogy.
So how does this apply to like real life though? It's easy to think about muscles, but how about things like our careers or relationships or even learning new stuff?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? So Taleb uses this really vivid example, right? To show the difference between fragile and anti-fragile. He talks about Damocles, that guy from Greek mythology with the sword hanging over his head.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Always fearing that one little thread would snap.
Talk about stress.
Yeah.
I can definitely relate to that feeling sometimes.
Yeah, that's fragility for sure.
Okay, so who's the anti-fragile counterpart?
Taleb uses the Hydra.
The Hydra.
Yeah, like every time you chop off one of its heads, two more grow back. Literally thrives on chaos.
So are we saying we should, like, go looking for chaos,
Yeah.
purposefully throw ourselves into tough situations?
Not exactly. It's more about recognizing that, I mean, some level of disorder is just going to happen, right? Like, it's inevitable. So instead of trying to get rid of it completely, which is probably impossible anyway, we should be focusing on building systems that can adapt and, like, actually use it to their advantage.
I'm following you.
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking about all those times when, avoiding a challenge has actually felt kind of smart. Isn't there some value in protecting ourselves sometimes?
100%. But Taleb would say we've gone too far with that. He uses this term, touristification of life.
Touristification.
Yeah, where we create these perfectly planned, predictable experiences, like shielding ourselves from any discomfort or inconvenience.
Which honestly sometimes sounds pretty nice.
Yeah.
But I guess you're saying that in the process, we might be missing out on opportunities to grow and adapt.
Exactly. Like, think about it with your own goals. Are there any areas where you're playing it too safe? Maybe avoiding a challenge that could actually lead to a breakthrough. And this connects with what Josh Waitzkin talks about in The Art of Learning.
Okay, so how does Waitzkin fit in? He's that chess prodigy, right? And then went on to master Tai Chi.
Yeah, and his whole approach to learning is about embracing complexity and being okay with discomfort.
Yeah.
Like, he was this incredible chess prodigy, but he didn't shy away from playing in, like, Washington Square Park.
Right.
Facing all sorts of opponents, losing games, having to constantly adapt. That's where his real growth was.
Interesting. And that idea of losing, that's a big part of his philosophy, right?
Yeah.
He calls it an investment in loss. So he's saying setbacks are essential for progress.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. When you lose, when you fail, you're forced to figure out what went wrong, adjust, try again. Those moments are like crucial for learning.
Like those times you totally bombed a presentation, but then, because of that, you learn how to prepare better or connect with the audience better.
Exactly. It stings in the moment, but you come out stronger. And it applies to all kinds of learning, not just chess or martial arts, learning a new language, starting a business, any skill. Those moments of failure are going to happen. It's about seeing them as opportunities to get better, not reasons to give up.
So connecting it back to Taleb, Waitzkin's investment in loss is a way to become more anti-fragile. By embracing those setbacks, those moments of chaos, we're actually getting stronger for the long haul.
Precisely. And it's not just about individual growth. Taleb argues this applies to systems too. He's very critical of how we try to predict and control things like the economy. He says by eliminating all randomness, by creating these elaborate systems to prevent any disruption, we're actually making ourselves more vulnerable.
More vulnerable, huh?
Yeah, to some massive failure.
He uses that analogy of the cat in the washing machine, right?
Exactly. The cat, being this complex, adaptable organism, can handle a lot of chaos. The washing machine, on the other hand, is designed to operate under very specific conditions.
Right.
Throw a wrench in there and the whole thing breaks down.
And we, as humans, can get stuck in that washing machine mindset.
All the time. We crave that certainty, that predictability. But the reality is, life is full of surprises, right? And if we're not prepared to adapt, to learn from those unexpected events, well, we're setting ourselves up for a lot of stress and potential failure.
I'm starting to see how this connects to those articles you sent about the economy and the stock market.
Exactly. We'll dive into that more later. But for now, The key is embracing some level of randomness. A
Randomness.
certain amount of, investment in loss, that's what builds true resilience for us personally and for our systems.
Okay, I'm with you.
So, are you ready to get a little uncomfortable?
I think so. I think our listeners are ready too.
Good, because that's where the real growth happens.
Okay, so we've been talking about this big kind of philosophical idea of anti-fragility, embracing uncertainty, learning from setbacks, building systems that can adapt to change. But how do we actually do that? Like, where do we even begin?
Well, that's where James Clear's atomic habits comes in.
Atomic habits. Okay.
Might seem like a jump, going from these big ideas to the nitty-gritty of, forming habits.
I think I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
It's about building those anti-fragile systems at a personal level, right? If we can master those what does he call them? 1% improvements each day.
Exactly. Those tiny changes, but done consistently over time, they can lead to huge changes in who we are and what we're capable of.
It's not about some massive overnight transformation. It's about those little things we do day after day.
Right.
Clear uses that awesome example of British cycling to prove this point.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't become world dominating by making some crazy radical change. They focused on these tiny marginal gains. 1% better tires, 1% better sleep, 1% better nutrition. It seems almost too simple, but
But it works, and that's what's so exciting about it, right? It's not about some superhuman willpower or magic talent. It's about understanding this power of consistency and focusing on small, manageable changes that you can actually do day after day.
so what's more effective then? Setting these big, hairy, audacious goals or focusing on those tiny habits?
Clear is very clear on this. Systems beat goals every time. Goals are about the destination, but systems are about the journey.
Okay.
It's not about obsessing over that outcome way out there in the future. It's about falling in love with the process, the daily practice of getting better.
I see the connection to Waitzkin again here.
Oh, yeah,
Both of them are emphasizing the process of mastery, not just that end result.
100%. For Waitzkin, it's making the sandals, not paving the whole world. You can't control everything, but you can equip yourself for that, rough terrain. And for Clear, it's about building those atomic habits. Over time, they create a system for success.
Okay, so how do we actually build these habits then? I mean, we all know how easy it is to get all gung-ho about something new and then poof, the motivation's gone after like a week. Does it Clear have any, practical advice for making these habits stick?
He does. He breaks it down into this 4-part loop. Cue, craving, response, reward. And getting this loop is key because it gives you the tools to basically hack your own behavior.
Okay, so break that down. What does each part of the loop actually mean?
Sure. A cue is anything that triggers the habit. Could be a time of day, a location, an emotional state, even another habit. The craving is the desire that drives that behavior. The response is the actual habit itself, the action you take. And the reward is the positive reinforcement that makes you want to do it again.
So if I'm trying to build a habit of meditating every morning,
Yeah.
my cue could be like my alarm going off.
Yeah.
The craving could be wanting that calmness and focus. The response is actually sitting down and meditating. And the reward could be like that feeling of peace and clarity I get afterward.
Exactly. And the key is to make each part of that loop work for you. Make the cue obvious, the craving attractive, the response easy, and the reward satisfying.
So what if the reward isn't immediately satisfying? Like say I'm trying to build a habit of exercising. That reward, better health and fitness, that's not something I'm going to experience right away. So how do I make that habit stick?
That's where this idea of habit stacking comes in.
Habit stacking.
Yeah. You link a new habit to an existing one that already has a solid reward. For example, you could say, after I brush my teeth in the morning, I'm going to do 10 push-ups.
Oh, I like that. It's piggybacking on an already ingrained habit, brushing my teeth.
Right. And over time, you can build more complex stacks, creating this whole chain of positive habits that support each other.
That's so smart. It's not about relying on willpower. It's about strategically setting up your environment and routines to actually support the habits you want.
Exactly. And speaking of environment, Clear is big on this, making good habits easy and bad habits hard. It's not just about self-control, it's about reducing friction, reducing temptation. If you want to eat healthier, get rid of the junk food. Make sure you have those healthy snacks easily available.
Ugh, I know. I'm so bad about that. I tell myself I'm going to eat healthy, but then, life happens. I'm tired or stressed, and those chips in the pantry start calling my name.
I hear you. It's about setting yourself up for success. Design your environment to actually support your goals.
This all goes back to what we were talking about with investment and loss, right?
No, how so?
We often shy away from challenges because they feel uncomfortable. But what if that discomfort is actually a sign that we're on the right track, like we're stretching ourselves, we're growing?
I like that. And it's not just about looking for discomfort for the sake of it. It's about recognizing that real growth, true mastery, often happens on the other side of those tough moments.
So we're not just building habits for the sake of being more productive or efficient. We're building them to cultivate those deeper qualities like resilience, adaptability, the ability to learn from mistakes.
Exactly. And that brings us to one of the most important points in both Atomic Habits and The Art of Learning Identity. It's not just about doing the habit, it's about who you are.
Identity. Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this.
Both Clear and Waitzkin are saying that lasting change, true mastery, it comes from aligning your habits with the identity you want to build.
Okay.
If you see yourself as the kind of person who does the habit, it's so much easier to stick with it.
So instead of saying, I want to write a book, I say, I am a writer.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of shift.
Yes. It's not just the actions, it's your beliefs about yourself. What identity do you want to build through your habits?
I see how that could be really powerful. If you see yourself as someone who's disciplined, who embraces challenges, who prioritizes their health, those habits will naturally flow from that identity.
Right. And it's not about being perfect, having some ideal vision of yourself. It's about this process of becoming, continually refining your identity as you learn and grow.
And that's where the magic happens. When those small atomic changes start to add up, they create this incredible momentum that carries you forward.
Exactly. And that momentum, that feeling of progress becomes its own reward. It fuels that cycle of positive change.
So we've explored this whole idea of antifragility, right? Learning to not just deal with randomness, but actually benefit from it. And we've talked about those atomic habits, those little changes that can lead to amazing results over time.
And what's really cool is how these things, when you put them together, can create this powerful framework, not just for like surviving, but for actually thriving when things change. It's not about weathering the storm. It's about using that storm to, propel you forward.
I'm thinking back to those articles you shared about the economy and the stock market.
Hmm.
Seems like a lot of the old ways of predicting and controlling things are built on this idea that stability is best.
And as Taleb points out, that can actually make those systems more fragile in the long run. You try to suppress volatility, you just end up creating this buildup of pressure that, eventually explodes.
It's like holding a beach ball underwater.
Mm.
You can keep it down there for a bit, but eventually it's going to pop up with even more force.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that Waitzkin's approach to learning kind of reflects that same idea, embracing that volatility. He talks about losing to win, like going out and finding those tough situations where you're probably going to fail because that's where you actually learn.
So it's not about dodging failure. It's about building that capacity to learn from it and come back stronger.
Right. And that's what makes this all so relevant for everybody. It's about realizing that setbacks are going to happen. Uncertainty is part of life. But instead of being afraid of them, you can use them to your advantage.
It's like that saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But I think we're going further here. Not just surviving, but actually thriving.
Exactly. And that's where the magic is. When you start seeing those moments of chaos, those setbacks, as opportunities to grow and adapt.
What I find so inspiring about all this is that it's not about some magical talent or like insane willpower. It's about developing a mindset, a skill set that helps you navigate life with more resilience, more creativity, even more joy.
Yeah, I love that. I think a key takeaway is that this is a journey. It's not like you reach this point and go, boom, I'm anti-fragile, I'm done.
Right.
It's constant learning, adapting, and refining your approach as you go.
And that's what makes it exciting. It's not about reaching some fixed destination. It's about this constant becoming, this evolution, expanding your potential.
Exactly. Taleb would say that's, the core of what it means to be truly alive, to be engaged with the unexpected, open to new possibilities, and never stop learning and growing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question. What in your life are you treating as fragile that could actually be anti-fragile?
What opportunities are you maybe missing out on because you're afraid of the unknown, afraid to step outside that comfort zone?
What if, instead of trying to control everything, you actually leaned into that uncertainty, leaned into the chaos, and let it shape you into something even stronger?
That's the invitation here. To shift that perspective, embrace the unexpected, and discover your incredible potential. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone.
We hope you found it helpful and inspiring. And remember, that journey to anti-fragility and mastery, it starts with a single step, a single atomic habit, a single decision to embrace the challenge and become more than you were yesterday.